Hey folks, this is Cindy. Thanks so much for stopping by. Today I'm going to be sharing some really quick Copic coloring, and I'm going to be using the Technique Tuesday Strawberry Stamp Set. This is from their June of 2018 Greenhouse Society collection. I will have a link down below as well as over my blog so you can check out Technique Tuesday's Greenhouse Society collections as well as their memberships. I wanted to do something pretty quick and simple today because I think that these strawberries are just darling almost by themselves. I can think of so many different things you can do with them, but I really loved the quick and easy idea behind this. I have a picture there on the right so you can really see what those details look like. There's also a die set available for these if you're interested in those, and I will have those linked down below as well as over my blog. And I also wanted to share with you another stamp set that Technique Tuesday sent me. And this is this Sweet Summertime stamp set. I think this stamp set is also really darling. I could totally see these lined up. You could mask them off in a row and just make it really clean and simple. These also have a coordinating die set available for them, and I will have those linked down below as well. And I'm really looking forward to being able to use that one here soon. All right, so let's get started on our card here. I have a piece of Nina Solar White cardstock. So this is 80 pounds. I have it cut down to 4¼ inches by 5½ inches. And I want to give myself a little bit of a border. I want to make sure that I have enough space there on the left-hand side and the bottom for the stamp because I'm going to stamp this down here in the lower third. So I have my T-ruler lined up there on the edge of my panel, just to the edge of those numbers. And I'm going to lightly draw a line with my pencil on the left as well as on the bottom. You could probably do a border around all 4 sides with the type of ink blending that I'm going to do, but I decided I kind of wanted to make sure that it kind of blended out to a nice white, so I didn't add those lines. I have this in my Misty stamping tool, and I'm going to stamp this with Altenew permanent black ink. I chose this ink for 2 reasons. Number 1, I knew I was going to be doing some Copic coloring. Number 2, I really like how dark and black this is. Generally, I only need to stamp my images 1 time, even with a new stamp, and this ink works really well for that. So once I have my image stamped on here, I'm going to get to my coloring. I have R32, 35, 37, and 39. I decided that these would probably be really good strawberry colors. I did want it pretty dark, so these colors work perfect for that. And this coloring is going to be super duper simple, folks. There's nothing fancy here. I just simply wanted to color these in. You could definitely do all sorts of techniques with them. You could bring in colored pencils. You could do all sorts of highlighting on these, especially on the strawberries around those seeds. You could do all sorts of things with them. I just decided to keep them really simple. I thought this image was so sweet. It just didn't need a whole lot. So that's why I'm going to take this approach today. I started with my R32. Now I'm bringing in my R39 and I'm coloring in where my shadows are going to go. I'm not really focusing on a light source in particular. The only thing I really have going on in my head is, you know how some strawberries, they have like those lighter red spots on them. So that's kind of what I had going on, and I thought I would really play that up. Now I know a good strawberry is supposed to be nice and red and pretty and evenly colored. I actually thought that it would look nicer on the image itself if I didn't do that, if I played up those natural lighter spots on a strawberry while it's ripening. Hopefully that makes sense. That's what I was thinking when I colored it, so there we are. Once I was done with that R39, I brought in the R37 and I blended that out just a little bit more. Now I have my R35 and I'm blending that out just a little bit more. Right now I actually have quite a bit of white space left. You could probably go a little bit thinner. I was just kind of playing around with this and eyeballing it, seeing if I liked it or not. And it worked out in the end, so it was just fine. Now I'm going to go in with that R32 and I'm going to cover all of that up. I did leave a little bit of highlight there along the edges where it curves out at the top there, and then right there in the center. Really simple coloring. That's really all I needed to do with it, and I think the colors on it look just fine. So I showed you the strawberry. I'm going to show you the other one because I do kind of move that lighter red into a different area, primarily because this strawberry is sticking up. So it's laying on its side. So I thought that the highlight or the lighter red area should probably be more up at the top. Also, I'm making sure that I add that shadow underneath where those leaves are. I did want those to have a little bit of definition to them so they look a little bit more separated from that strawberry, so they didn't quite look so flat. I'm using the same colors as I did on the first one. I started with my R39 this time. I'm going to the R37 and then to the R35. I'll bring in that R32, blend that out a little bit, and just call it good. I had noticed when I was finishing up this one that my first strawberry needed to be blended out just a little bit more, so I do add a little bit more blending to that. Outside of that, I'm going to call it good. At this point, I also know that I'm going to be bringing in a black gel pen at some point to really add some definition to those little seeds there. You could do it with white, you could do it with any color you like. I just thought that the black would look really cool and add a little bit more texture to these strawberries. So now I'm going to color in the leaves. I'm only going to show you the one because they're all the same. Again, I didn't do anything super fancy here, folks. This image by itself, it's just so sweet and so simple that it can really stand up to some super simple coloring. So for my greens, I have the G12, G14, G17, and G29. I actually use this green combination quite a bit. I thought that this would look really nice with the color, the particular color of those red strawberries. So I started with my G29, and I basically am doing some fairly simple flicking motions. It's almost like a Christmas tree. It goes right up the center of that. And then I bring in my G17, blend it out to that G29 just a little bit more. Now I'm bringing in that G14. I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm leaving those edges quite a bit lighter because I do want to bring in my G12 there. And for this, I'm actually going to start from the edge of the leaf and work my way towards the center. I didn't want the variation and those colors blended out very much, so I didn't go over those with the G12. So now that I have my leaves colored in, I'm going to color in these flowers, and I wanted these to be white. You could definitely do them in pink if you'd like, or you could bring that yellow out of the centers just a little bit more. I thought just a plain white flower would be just fine. I'm mapping out my shadows with my C3, and I'm being pretty conservative here because I'm actually going to go over the top of the C3 with my C5. And I don't want these to be too dark. Now, it's going to look kind of dark anyways because I don't have any reference around it. So right now, they're just going to read a darker gray color. But once I bring in that ink blending and that color starts to surround it, these will actually look white. I brought in that C5, blended it out a little bit with the C3, brought in that C1, and I'm just barely bringing these colors out. I want to leave lots and lots of legitimate white on the paper so they actually look like white flowers. Now I'm going to blend these out with the C00, and then I'm going to call it good. I do hang on to my C markers because I'm actually going to add a drop shadow to this, but we'll talk about that more here soon. Now I'm going to get onto my ink blending. I have a piece of Simon Says Stamp masking paper, and this is cut down to 4 1/4 inches by 5 1/2. It probably didn't need to be this big. Typically what I do under these circumstances is I'll cut it down to the same size as my panel so I can line things up like the way they're supposed to, but I kind of got lazy, so I just die cut it wherever I wanted to on this piece of masking paper. But now I need to make sure that that's lined up with that stamped image. I have the backing paper pulled off the positive piece of my die cut here of the masking paper. Now I'm going to put that in there just like a puzzle. Using that negative piece to lay it over the top of your stamped image really helps a ton. Then you don't have to do any guessing. And then you have that white border once you've done all of your ink blending is perfect all the way around. There's a really handy trick for you folks. I also have my edges here on the left-hand side and the bottom masked off because I want to leave those white. Everything else can be ink blended just fine, but I wanted to keep those edges nice and crisp, clean and white. Okay, so I'm going to start my ink blending with Simon Says Stamp Mint Candy ink, and I'm just going over this with a fairly light hand. I am going to start working my way up towards that top right corner and over there on the right hand side, but I want to make sure that I'm still giving myself plenty of white space because I need to make sure that this blends out really well. So I'm going in with that light hand. When you're actually ink blending like this and you have no other point of reference, it's hard to tell how dark you're going. It's probably a little bit easier to see it here on the video, but in person it's always really hard to tell how dark you're going. Just make sure that you give it a good once over, pretty light. You don't have to have a whole lot of ink on your blending foam there, and then you can go on to your next color. This next color is Simon Says Stamp Scuba ink. I'm going to keep this color in particular really close to that stamped image because I do want it to be a little darker around that, and then I'll blend it out some more with Mint Candy here in just a moment. And you can also probably tell that I had a little bit of a spot right there by that one leaf where I got a little heavy-handed with that Mint Candy. That's fine. It blends out just fine in the end, especially since I'm going to go over this several times. I don't always show this in my videos, but I do go over these until I get them where I want them. You can probably see at this point, I'm also making sure that I keep lots of white space up there around that top right hand corner because again, I want to make sure that it blends out to a nice white. Once I have all of my ink blending done, I'm going to keep these masks on because I'm actually going to go in with some Hero Art Shimmer Mist and I'm going to splatter that across the front of my card panel. I didn't want it over the top of my images, and I didn't want it in any of that white space that I had masked off. You could totally skip this if you would like. I just thought it would be really cool to have a little bit of shimmer on it, and I really like this Hero Art Shimmer Mist. The other thing to note is this Simon Says Stamp ink, it dries back and smooths out. So right now it looks kind of rough, but once it dries back, it'll be nice and smooth and it'll actually be quite a bit lighter. So do keep that in mind, folks. Once I had that shimmer mist splattered on there, I let it dry. I pulled off those masks. I did go in with the eraser over the top of those images to make sure that I didn't have any residue on them because I don't want to color over the top of that. It will ruin your Copics, folks. Now I'm going to add the drop shadow to this. Again, this is something that you could totally skip. I just thought that it needed a little bit something more on this. It would have been fine without it, but I'm a sucker for a drop shadow, so that's what I was going to do anyway. I'm mapping this out with my C3. If you follow me at all, you've probably seen this a million times already. If you don't follow me, then what I typically do with my drop shadows is I always come in, map it out with my C3, then I come in with my C5, go over the top of that. On this in particular, I'm making sure that I'm keeping those lines nice and thin. I don't have a lot of white space here, and it doesn't need a very large drop shadow, so I'm just making sure that I use the tip of my marker here, going in pretty light, pretty thin, and then I'm going to call it good. Once I have my C5 on here, I'm going to go back in with my C3, blend that out with the C1, go in with the C00, and if I feel like I still have any harsh lines or anything like that, I will bring in my colorless blender and smooth those out a little bit. So, as I said, I will have a link down below and as well as over my blog for the Technique Tuesday Greenhouse Society collections. They actually have a membership that you can subscribe to, but I definitely suggest that you go check out the stamps for the Greenhouse Society collections, folks. If you like florals, then you will love these. I've been a big fan of Technique Tuesday's flowers for a long time, and their collections do not disappoint every month. I totally think they're worth checking out, so do be sure to go do that. Also, I wanted to let you guys know that I will have another video coming up here in a couple days for a blog named Hero, and then I might miss next week. We are in the process of moving. We're trying to get things settled. I currently do not have a craft room. In fact, at this very moment, I am in my bedroom doing this voiceover. So hopefully I'll be able to get my act together fast enough that I can get back into the swing of things. But I definitely wanted to let you guys know that I haven't fallen off the face of the earth. We just need to get our lives put back together before I can function again. So now I'm finishing up with the C00, and I think that I still have a few harsher lines there. I do prefer a smoother blend on my drop shadows. You could absolutely leave it. It's just something that I'm super picky with. So I'm bringing in my blender, my colorless blender, and I'm going to smooth those out a little bit. Also, I didn't show you how I did the center of these flowers. I just brought in a couple yellow Copics. Again, I'll have those listed down below. Kind of colored them in a little bit, but I am going to add some embellishments here in just a moment, and we'll talk about that. I decided that I wanted to draw some black lines just on this border here. So I have a Copic multi-liner, my T-ruler, I have that lined up there, and I'm just drawing those in. I did make sure that my Copic multi-liner had the same thickness as the stamped image, so it looked a little bit more cohesive. Now I'm going to stamp my sentiment on here, and for this I'm actually going to use a W+9 black ink. I love, love, love this ink for sentiments. I use it all the time. So now I'm going to finish up my card here. I'm going to add some embellishments to the center of these flowers here on the stamen. This is a Kaiser Craft, a glitter pin. This is actually really, really lovely, lovely color of a yellowish orange. I forget that I have these, but since I was moving and I was packing everything up, I was like, jackpot. I'm going to use these on this card. So these are really cool. Again, I'll have these linked down below. And of course, no card of mine is complete without loads of glitter. So I have my Nuvo Aqua Shimmer pen, and I'm going over all of the highlights on all of the images. Here is that black glaze jelly roll pen, and I am just barely tapping over the top of these seeds, folks. These seeds are super duper tiny, and if you put too much pressure on those jelly roll pens, they will start to pool up, and I didn't want them too big, so I went really quick. I mounted this on a top folding note card, and I called it a day. I had a lot of fun using this stamp set, even though I kept this really quick and really simple. This would also make a really great background, I think. You could stamp this all over a card panel and then color it in, and I think that would just be darling. All right, that is it, folks. We're done. We're good to go. I hope you enjoyed my card today. If you did, hit that like button and share it with your friends. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and tap that bell next to the subscribe button so you can receive all future notifications. Thanks again so much for stopping by. Until next time.